He didn't ask for a divorce loudly. That's the part nobody tells you. You spend years bracing for the fight, the slammed doors, the raised voices, the dramatic moment where someone finally says the thing that can't be unsaid. You think that's how it ends, if it ends. You think you'll see it coming. Daniel handed me a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning, sat down across from me at the kitchen table we'd bought together 7 years ago, and said very quietly, "I don't think I can do this anymore, Ren." That was it. No build-up, no preamble, just those 11 words in the voice I'd heard say good morning and good night and I love you and we're out of milk for 11 years, and suddenly those 11 words were the only ones I could hear. I didn't cry, I didn't reach for his hand, I didn't say, "What do you mean?" or "Please don't," or any of the 1,000 things that were suddenly trying to exit my body at once. I picked up my coffee, I took a sip, and I said, "Okay." That single word, that one flat, contained, perfectly controlled syllable is the word that almost cost me my marriage. Not any of the fights we'd had, not the years of distance, not any specific moment I could point to. That "okay." Because in that moment, when the person I loved most in the world told me he was breaking, my instinct was not to reach for him. My instinct was to hold myself very still and not let him see that I was breaking too. That's who I was, that's who I had always been, and I had spent 11 years destroying us with it, one silence at a time, and I had genuinely believed I was doing the right thing. Before I go any further, if you're new here, please subscribe. I share real stories every week, stories about real relationships and real failures, and what it actually looks like to fix something before it's too late. Drop a comment below, tell me where you're listening from, because this community is everywhere, and I want to know where you are. Okay, let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you who I was before I understood what I was doing. My name is Renata Voss, now Renata Kowalski, 11 years married, living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, working as a senior operations manager for a logistics company. I am good at my job in a specific, deliberate way. I anticipate problems before they happen. I build systems so things don't fall apart. I keep my emotions out of my decisions because emotions cloud clarity, and clarity is what solves problems. My team calls me unflappable, and they mean it as a compliment, and for a long time so did I. I grew up in a house where feelings were not discussed, not because my parents were cruel, they weren't, they were practical. My mother was a nurse for 30 years, my father ran a small hardware store, and both of them moved through the world with the particular efficiency of people who had learned that most problems could be solved by doing the next right thing, rather than standing around feeling bad about the last wrong one. We didn't talk about sadness, we didn't talk about fear. When something difficult happened, we handled it, and handling it meant moving forward, not lingering. I watched my mother handle my grandmother's death, my father's back surgery, a flooded basement, a car accident that totaled her car and left her with a mild concussion, all with the same steady forward motion. She never fell apart. I thought that was strength. I modeled myself on it so completely that by the time I was in my 20s, I genuinely could not have told you the difference between being strong and being closed. Daniel was the opposite of everything I'd been built to be. He felt things loudly, not dramatically, not in a scene-making way, but openly, honestly, without apparent shame. When a movie moved him, he said so. When something at work frustrated him, he came home and talked about it for 20 minutes until it was out of his system. When he was happy, he was visibly, contagiously happy in the specific way of someone who has never learned to be embarrassed by joy. When he was worried, he said, "I'm worried about this," and then he told you exactly why, in detail. Not because he needed you to fix it, but because putting it into language made it smaller. I found this extraordinary when we met. I found it almost exotic, this man who could say, "I had a hard day," and mean it simply, who could be vulnerable without seeming to calculate whether it was safe to be vulnerable, who cried at a documentary about migratory birds on our 4th date and looked at me afterward and said, "Sorry, birds get me," with zero apparent embarrassment. I fell in love with that openness, the way you fall in love with a language you've never spoken. Something about it felt like recognition, like a version of yourself you hadn't been introduced to yet. What I didn't understand, what took me 11 years to understand, was that he fell in love with me partly because he saw, beneath my surface, someone who needed that same permission. Someone who was waiting, without knowing she was waiting, for someone to make it safe to feel things out loud. He was trying to give me that permission for 11 years. I kept handing it back to him, unopened, with a polite smile and a "thank you, but I'm fine." There's a detail I want to give you now, because it comes back later. When we were first dating, maybe 3 months in, Daniel and I had our first real disagreement. Something small, I genuinely cannot remember the specifics, only the shape of it. But I remember what I did. I went very quiet. I folded everything inward, the way I'd learned to fold things, neatly, with no visible edges. I said, "It's fine," and "I'm okay," and "let's just move on," and I meant every word. And Daniel sat across from me with his elbows on his knees and his hands loose and open, and he said, "Ren, you don't have to be okay. You're allowed to be not okay." I said, "I know." I didn't know. I wouldn't know for a very long time. I would carry those 4 words, "you're allowed to be not okay," for 11 years before I really understood them. We got married at 28. We were happy, genuinely, really happy, in the way that early marriages are happy when 2 people choose each other with their whole selves and haven't yet run up against the ways that their whole selves don't always fit together. We bought a house. We built routines. We had friends and dinners and weekend trips, and a cat named Gerald, who had opinions about everything and expressed them constantly, which I found both irritating and secretly comforting. And we were good. For years, we were genuinely really good, in the way that early marriages are good when 2 people choose each other with their whole selves and haven't yet run up against the ways that their whole selves don't always fit together. We bought a house. We built routines. We had friends and dinners and weekend trips, and a cat named Gerald, who had opinions about everything and expressed them constantly, which I found both irritating and secretly comforting. But here is what was happening underneath the good, without my noticing it, without my meaning it, without my understanding it was happening at all. Daniel would come home with something, a worry, a frustration, a feeling he needed to put somewhere, and he would try to put it with me. He would say, "I'm stressed about this project," or "I've been feeling off this week," or "something's bothering me and I can't quite name it," and I would listen. I was always good at listening. I gave him my full attention. I asked clarifying questions. I was present in the visible ways. But then I would help, I would fix, I would take whatever he'd brought me and organize it into actionable steps, or I would reassure him efficiently, "You've handled harder things, you'll figure this out." And then I would move on, because that was what you did with a problem. You understood it, you addressed it, and you kept going. What I was not doing, what I didn't even know I was supposed to be doing, was meeting him there, in the feeling itself, just sitting in the uncomfortable place with him and letting him know he didn't have to resolve it before I would stay. He told me this eventually. He told me in pieces, over years, in ways I kept partially hearing and reassembling into something more manageable than what he was actually saying. Year 3. I feel like you're always managing me, like everything I bring you gets turned into a to-do list. I said, I'm just trying to help. I believed that completely. Year 5. Sometimes I just want you to be with me, not solve it, not fix it, just be there. I said, I am there. I believed that too. Year 7. I feel like I'm talking to a wall sometimes, Ren, not because you're not listening, because I can't see you listening. I can't see any of it land. That one stopped me. For 3 days I thought about it. I made genuine attempts to be more expressive, to reflect back what he was saying, to show more clearly that I was present. He seemed better for a while. I thought fixed. Year 9. I don't know where you are anymore. I feel like I've been trying to find you for years, and you keep stepping just out of reach. Each time I heard him. Each time I made a small adjustment and believed I'd addressed it. Each time something in Daniel would quiet for a while, and then gradually, months later, a year later, it would surface again, in a different form but underneath the same, and I would hear it and adjust again and think fixed. I was not fixing it. I was managing it. And managing a wound and healing it are not the same thing. One makes it livable, the other makes it whole. Year 4, there was a specific evening I've thought about many times since. We'd had friends over for dinner, a couple we'd known for years, warm people, the kind you can be real around. At some point during dessert, the conversation turned to something heavy, a loss one of them was carrying, and Daniel, without planning to, got emotional. His eyes filled, he pressed his lips together. He was composed within 30 seconds, but he had felt something in front of other people, and he had let them see it. Later that night, when everyone had gone and the kitchen was clean and the lights were low, Daniel was at the counter with a glass of water, and he said, "That got me tonight." I said, "I noticed. You okay?" He said, "Yeah, it's just things like that make me think about what really matters, about loss." I said, "That makes sense." And then I said I was going to check on Gerald, and I left the kitchen. That was it. He had opened a door, small, unannounced, the kind of opening that requires almost nothing to walk through, and I had said, "That makes sense," and walked in the other direction. He didn't say anything that night. He stood at the counter for a while. I didn't know this. I found out years later, in the middle of the hardest conversation of our marriage, when he brought up that evening, and I didn't even remember it, and he said, "I know. That's the part that stayed with me." He had stood at the counter and thought, "She is never going to be here with me. Not really." And then he had been ashamed of thinking it, because I was right there. I was right there in the next room, and he was still alone. The honest answer to why I had no idea is not comfortable to give, but I'll give it. I had no idea because I never looked, not because I didn't care. I cared about Daniel more than I had words for, which is partly why I never used words. But because looking would have meant acknowledging that he was hurting, and acknowledging that he was hurting would have meant acknowledging that I had something to do with it, and acknowledging that I had something to do with it would have meant sitting with guilt and grief and inadequacy, and I had spent my entire life building an interior architecture specifically designed to prevent sitting with those things. I was protecting myself.
I called it being strong. It was not being strong. Year 10 was when it started to become visible even to me. Daniel stopped trying as much, not all at once, not in a dramatic, sudden withdrawal, but gradually, the way warmth leaves a room when no one tends the fire. He stopped telling me about his days in the same detail. He stopped reaching for me in the specific way he used to reach, the deliberate, wanting kind of reaching, not just proximity. He was present, he was kind, he was functional, but something had changed in the quality of his presence, and I noticed it the way you notice a sound that stopped, not immediately, but in the silence. I noticed, and I did what I always did with discomfort. I organized it. I told myself he was stressed at work. I told myself it was a phase. I told myself that long marriages had natural ebbs and flows, and this was an ebb, and it would flow again. I made a plan. We would take a trip. I would plan more intentional evenings at home. I would be more attentive. All external solutions for something that was interior and deep and had been growing for years. The trip was good. The evenings were nice. Nothing changed. And then came the Sunday morning, the coffee, the kitchen table, the 11 words. I don't think I can do this anymore, Wren. And my okay. He looked at me when I said it, looked at me for a long moment, and something in his face, something I hadn't seen before, a kind of exhausted recognition, made my stomach drop in a way I could not organize away. He said, "That's it? Okay." I said, "What do you want me to say?" He said, "I don't know. Something, anything, something that tells me you're actually in this room with me." And there it was, the same thing, the thing he had been saying in different forms for 11 years, and I had been hearing in different forms for 11 years, and never quite arriving at the truth of. He wasn't asking for a solution. He never had been. He was asking for me. I put my coffee down. I looked at my hands for a moment, and then I said the truest thing I'd said in maybe years. I don't know how to do this. He said, I know.
No, I said. I mean, I genuinely don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be what you're asking for. I don't know if I can, and I don't know how to tell you that without it sounding like an excuse. He was very still. I heard you, I said, all those times. I heard you every time, and I thought I was fixing it. Every time I thought, okay, I understand now, I'll do better. And then I didn't do better, and I didn't understand why, and I kept not understanding why, and now here we are, and I still don't fully understand why. The silence that followed was the longest of our marriage. Outside, the Minneapolis winter was doing what Minneapolis winters do, grey and absolute, the sky the colour of old dishwater, no movement anywhere. Inside, the refrigerator hummed. Gerald appeared in the kitchen doorway, looked at both of us, and left, which was the most Gerald thing he had ever done. Then Daniel said something that cracked open the part of me that I had spent 38 years keeping sealed. Wren, when is the last time you cried in front of me? I opened my mouth. I closed it. Not out of frustration, he said, not at a movie. When is the last time you were sad about something real and you let me see it? I sat there and I tried to remember. I tried, actually tried, and I couldn't find it. I could find moments of being sad. I could find moments of grief and fear, and the specific helplessness that comes with loving someone and not being able to protect them from everything. I could find all of those moments, but I could not find a single one where I had let Daniel see them. I don't know, I said. I don't know either, he said, and I've been trying to remember for a long time.
We didn't resolve anything that morning. That's the thing about real conversations. They don't wrap up nicely. He didn't take back the 11 words, and I didn't suddenly become someone new. What happened was smaller and more significant than that. What happened was that I stayed at the table. I didn't start the dishwasher. I didn't make a plan. I just stayed, and I said, "I don't know," again. And he said, "I know." And we sat in that kitchen for another hour in a silence that was different from all the other silences. Not a silence that closed things off, but one that left them open. He did not ask for a divorce that day. He didn't take the words back either. They just sat between us, those 11 words, like something that had been said and couldn't be unsaid, and now had to be decided what to do with. I called my sister that afternoon, my sister Claudia, who is 3 years older than me and who has always been the one person in my life who could say things to me that I would actually hear. I told her what Daniel had said. I told her what I had said back. I told her about the okay, which I already knew by then had been the wrong word in the wrong voice with the wrong everything. Claudia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Ren, can I ask you something and you have to actually answer it?" I said yes. She said, "What are you feeling right now?" I started to say, "I'm okay," and she interrupted, "No, what are you actually feeling?" I stopped. I sat with it. For the first time in I don't know how long, I deliberately stopped trying to go around the feeling and went directly into it, the way you step into cold water because you have to, and not because it's comfortable.
Terrified, I said. I'm terrified. Of what? Of losing him, of having already lost him, of finding out that I did this to us and I didn't even know I was doing it, and now it might be too late. Claudia said, "There it is." I said, "There what is?" She said, "That, what you just did, that's what he's been asking you to do for 11 years. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a Target I had driven to for no reason because I'd needed to be in motion, and I understood something for the first time. I was not an emotionally unavailable person because I was cold. I was emotionally unavailable because I was afraid. I had learned so early and so completely that the learning had become invisible, that my feelings were a burden, that being affected by things was a weakness, that the right way to love someone was to be steady for them, not to need steadiness in return. I had been trying to be my mother's version of strong, and my mother's version of strong was built for a different life than mine. I went home. Daniel was on the couch reading one of his history books, the thick kind with the bent spines, with Gerald asleep across his feet in the specific proprietary way Gerald slept on people's feet, as if feet were a resource he was guarding. The lamp was on, the room was warm, everything was exactly as it always was on a Sunday evening, and it looked in that moment like something I had almost lost without ever understanding its value. I sat down next to him. He didn't say anything. Neither did I for a moment. Gerald opened one eye, assessed the situation, and closed it again. Then I said, "I'm terrified." He looked at me over the top of his book. "Of losing you," I said. "Of having already broken something I can't identify and can't fix because I don't fully understand what it is yet. I've been sitting in a parking lot for an hour, and I think I understood more in that parking lot than I have in 10 years. And I'm telling you that because you asked me. You asked me so many times to be in the room with you, to actually be in the room. So I'm in the room. I'm terrified, and I'm in the room." He set down his book. He looked at me for a long time, and his expression did something complicated that I couldn't fully decode, which was its own piece of information, because I had always told myself I knew his face, and I realized in that moment that I had been reading the surface of his face without ever learning what was beneath it. He said, "What took you so long?" The question was not an accusation. It was genuinely curious, in the way of someone who has been waiting a long time and is surprised that the thing they were waiting for finally arrived. "I thought being okay was strength," I said.
I thought if I fell apart, even a little, I was failing you, being a burden. I thought keeping myself together was the same as being reliable, as being good at this." He was quiet.
"I thought being strong meant you didn't need anything," I said. "I didn't understand that needing things is how you let someone love you." He said, very quietly, "I never needed you to be okay, Ren. I just needed you to be real." That was the beginning, not the fix, just the beginning of the possibility of a fix. And I want to be honest about what that beginning actually looked like, because I think the truth of it is more useful than a version that's been smoothed into something more comfortable. We started seeing a couples therapist named Dr. Adeze Ofer, who had the specific gift of sitting in silence until you said the true thing instead of the manageable thing. The first session, I sat across from her and gave her a concise summary of our situation, organized, clear, efficient, the kind of briefing I did in work meetings. And she looked at me when I was done and said, "How did it feel to say all of that?" I said, "Fine." She said, "Fine how?" I looked at her. "I don't understand the question." "Fine like relief. Fine like dread. Fine like you're performing competence for someone you just met and hoping I won't notice." I did not like Dr. Ofer for approximately 3 weeks. Then I loved her. She helped me understand something I had never had language for: the difference between emotional suppression and emotional regulation. I had always believed that what I did, keeping things contained, moving forward, staying functional, was regulation. It was not. Regulation means feeling the thing and choosing how to respond to it. Suppression means not allowing yourself to feel it at all. One is skill, the other is armor, and armor, worn long enough, stops feeling like armor and starts feeling like skin. I had been wearing armor for 38 years and calling it strength. She also helped me see what I had been doing to Daniel in concrete terms that I couldn't argue my way around. She asked him in one of our sessions to describe what it felt like when I went quiet. He thought about it for a moment. Daniel always thinks before he speaks, which I had always found steadying, and then he said something I have not forgotten. He said, "It's like being in a room with someone who has left. She's there, she's looking at me, she's responding, but the door behind her eyes is locked, and I can knock on it all I want, and she'll smile and say, 'I'm here, everything's fine,' but I know she's not. And after a while, you stop knocking, not because you've given up exactly, just because knocking on a locked door for 11 years does something to you." I sat in that room and I listened to my husband describe what I had built, and I understood for the first time, not intellectually, but in the place behind my sternum where the real understanding happens, that I had been causing a specific, nameable kind of harm, not by intention, not with cruelty, with the quiet, daily, structural harm of a person who has made themselves unreachable and called it independence. Dr. Ofor looked at me after Daniel said that and asked, "What are you feeling right now?" And this time, for the first time in that room, for perhaps the first time in years, I didn't say fine. I said, "I feel like I owe him an apology for something that took me 11 years to understand I was doing, and I feel—" I stopped, started again. "I feel grief for all the times he knocked and I didn't open the door, for everything that happened on the other side of that door that I kept to myself and told myself was none of his business,
It was his business. He was my husband. All of it was his business. The room was very quiet. Daniel reached over and put his hand on my arm. Just that, just his hand on my arm, the way he'd done 1,000 times, but different, because this time I didn't receive it and move on. I let it land. I let it mean something in a way I could feel. That was the first real session. We had many more. The work we did in that room and outside it, in our kitchen, in the car, on walks through a Minneapolis winter that is relentless in the specific way of things that don't care whether you're ready for them, was the hardest thing I have ever done, harder than any professional challenge, harder than any external difficulty. Because the thing I was being asked to do was the thing my entire interior architecture was built to prevent. Feel something in front of someone in real time without filtering it first into something more presentable. I was a person who presented feelings, not felt them. There is a difference so large it took a therapist to show it to me. The work we did in that room and outside it, in our kitchen, in the car, on walks through a Minneapolis winter that was so relentless it eventually became a strange kind of backdrop to the whole process, was the hardest thing I have ever done, harder than any professional challenge, harder than any external difficulty, because the thing I was being asked to do was the thing my entire interior architecture was built to prevent. Feel something in front of someone in real time without filtering it first into something more presentable. I was a person who presented feelings, not felt them. There is a difference so large it took a therapist to show it to me. I cried in front of Daniel for the first time in years on a Tuesday night in February. We were talking about something, I don't even remember what, some ordinary conversation that drifted into something real, and something he said landed somewhere unprotected, and my eyes filled before I could stop them, and my instinct, my immediate, trained, reflexive instinct, was to look away, to blink it back, to say, "Sorry, I'm fine," and redirect. I didn't. I sat there with it. I let him see it. He reached across the kitchen table, the same kitchen table, and put his hand over mine. He didn't say anything. He just put his hand over mine and left it there. It was the most intimate moment of our marriage, not the grandest, not the most dramatic, just that hand on that table after all those years. I said, "I don't know how to do this." He said, "I know, you're doing it." We were not fixed after that. I want to be very clear about that, because I think real stories owe you clarity about what healing actually looks like. We had more sessions with Dr. Ofer. We had more difficult conversations. There were nights when I reverted, when something happened and the old training kicked in and I went quiet and efficient, and Daniel would look at me across the room with a kind of careful patience that told me he was waiting to see which version of me he'd get. Those nights were the hardest, the nights when I could see him waiting and could feel myself deciding in real time whether to stay open or close down, and closing down was still faster and still easier and still, on some cellular level, still felt like safety. But I was learning slowly, imperfectly, in the 2 steps forward, 1 step back way of all real learning, that it wasn't safety, it was just familiar. 6 months after the Sunday morning, we were having dinner, nothing special, leftover pasta from the night before. Daniel said something about a co-worker who was going through a divorce, someone he liked, and how sad it made him. He said, "It makes me think about us, about how close we came." I said, "We haven't come out the other side yet." He looked at me. "No, but we're both still here."
Are you still... I stopped. Started again. Do you still want to be? He put down his fork. He looked at me the way he had looked at me that Sunday morning, but differently. Not with the exhaustion of 11 years of reaching for someone, but with something more present, more here. Yes, he said. Are you? Yes, I said. But I need you to know, I'm going to keep getting it wrong sometimes. I'm going to close down and you're going to feel it, and it's going to be frustrating. And I'm not saying that as a warning or an excuse. I'm saying it because I want you to tell me when it happens. I want you to name it, because I can't always see myself doing it. He said, I can do that. I mean it, I said. I need you to say, you're doing the thing. Not gently, just say it. He looked almost amused. The thing. The closing down thing. Okay, he said, and you have to actually listen when I say it. I'll try. That's all I'm asking, he said. Just try. It is 2 years now since the Sunday morning. We are still married. We are, and I say this with the specific care of someone who has learned not to take the word for granted, good. Not perfectly good, not fixed forever good, not the effortless kind of good that young marriages sometimes have before they've been tested, the earned kind, the kind that knows what it cost and tends to itself accordingly. Daniel still feels things loudly. He still comes home and puts his days somewhere, and now I am more often able to be the somewhere. Not always. There are still evenings when he's processing something, and I go slightly logistical, slightly solution-oriented, and he notices, and sometimes he says, "You're doing the thing," and I stop and try again. But more often now I can stay. I can sit in the uncomfortable feeling of his discomfort without immediately reaching for the fix, and I can say, that sounds really hard, and mean it as a complete sentence, not a preamble to something practical. I still go quiet sometimes. The training runs deep. There are moments, stress, overload, the particular exhaustion of a hard week at work, when the old architecture reasserts itself and the doors shut before I've noticed I've shut them. And Daniel will look at me across the room with that particular patience that is now patience that knows I'm watching you, and I'll feel it, and I'll have to make the choice in real time, stay closed or open the door. Opening the door is still harder. It is also, increasingly, what I want to do. There's something I think about often now, a small thing, quiet, but it doesn't leave me. Early in our marriage, first year maybe, we were driving somewhere, some long drive upstate, and Daniel fell asleep in the passenger seat, and I drove for 2 hours in the particular quiet of someone sleeping beside you, the particular quality of that silence, warm and close, a presence without demand, and at some point I looked over at him and felt something so full it almost frightened me, a feeling I couldn't name then and can barely name now, the particular enormous, almost unbearable weight of loving someone, of having chosen someone, of being chosen. I didn't tell him. When he woke up and stretched and asked how the drive was, I said fine. I said fine because fine was what I said, because saying I looked at you sleeping and felt something I didn't have words for was not a sentence I had been built to say. I told him about it last year, just the image, the drive, the winter light on the highway, the feeling I couldn't name. He listened to the whole thing, and when I was done, he was quiet for a moment in the way he's quiet when something has landed in a real place. Then he said, I knew. I said, what? I wasn't fully asleep, he said. I was drifting, and I felt you look at me. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. I always felt it, Ren. He paused. I always knew it was in there. I just couldn't get to it. That's what was so... He stopped. Hard, I said. Yeah, he said. Hard. We were in the same car, different drive,
Years later, Gerald asleep in his carrier in the back seat, getting old now, his breathing audible and regular and slightly snore-adjacent. "Can you get to it now?" Daniel said, "more than before?" I thought about the sessions with Dr. Ofor, about the Tuesday night in February and the tears I didn't look away from, about every time in the last 2 years I'd made the choice to open the door instead of closing it, imperfect and awkward and often a beat too late, but open. "More than I used to," I said. He reached over and took my hand on the console, didn't say anything, just held it. "That's enough," he said after a moment. "That's more than enough." That is the truest thing anyone has ever said to me about what love actually asks of us. Not perfection, not the dissolution of every wall I ever built, not constant, perfect, undefended openness, just more than I used to give. Just the daily willingness to try to reach for someone, even when closing down is faster and more familiar, and still some mornings feels like the safer choice.
I was not ready when we started. I have never been fully ready. That's not how it works. Readiness is not a threshold you cross and then remain on the other side of. It's a practice, a daily practice, some days harder than others, always worth doing. I just started trying anyway, and he stayed through all of it, the management, the efficiency, the years of fine and okay and let's move on. He stayed, and he kept knocking on the locked door, and eventually I opened it. Not because he fixed me, not because therapy fixed me, because I finally understood that the door was mine to open, and I had been the one keeping it locked, and the person on the other side had been waiting a very long time. I am still opening it, every day a little more. Gerald, the cat, is 11 now, which is old for a cat, and he sleeps more and reaches for warmth more than he used to. On winter evenings in Minneapolis, and Minneapolis winter evenings are long and specific in a way that makes you understand why Scandinavians write so much about darkness and light, he climbs onto my lap. He never used to. He was always Daniel's cat, in the proprietary way cats choose their people, but lately he climbs onto me and settles there with the absolute certainty of an animal who has decided you are safe. I think about that sometimes, about what it takes for something to decide you're safe, about how long the deciding takes, about how it happens slowly and then suddenly, and how you don't always know it's happening until it already has. I almost lost the person who decided I was safe. I almost lost him quietly, with perfect control, without a single raised voice or slammed door. Lost him to the specific kind of distance that looks like steadiness from the outside and is erosion from within. I was the quietest kind of dangerous thing, a woman who loved someone completely and showed him almost none of it, and told herself this was strength, and went on like that for 11 years. He gave me 11 years. I'm giving him the rest. And every morning when I sit across from him at that kitchen table, the same one still there, a little more worn, I try to be a little more in the room than I was yesterday. Most mornings I am. That's enough. That's more than enough.